You're listening to the 3 Feet Radio Show with Ben Carbonaro and Luke Herbert. From our studios come special guests and netball commentary, exclusively on YouTube.
G'day listeners, we're back again for a second episode of the 3 Feet Radio Show this week, aren't we, Luke?
We certainly are, and I've been looking forward to interviewing today's guest for quite a while, and it's nice to get away from the sort of Commonwealth countries that are not quite exclusively playing netball, but tend to be traditionally associated with it. Ben?
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. And joining us today is a regular guest in our show from time to time, in Netball America President Sonya Ottaway. G'day, Sonya. How are you going?
Oh, hi there, Ben and Luke. How is it down under?
Very good, thank you. All going well here. Obviously, with the ANZ Championship starting and the National Championships on here in Australia, under 17, under 19 in Perth at the moment. But more specifically, just to get things going with you, you're currently, you could almost say you're doing the INF's job. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Well, listen, what we're trying to do is get netball into the non-Commonwealth countries and grow it that way, because that's the only way, you're going to attract more vision and sponsors into netball, but also attract it into the Olympic Games. So what we've been doing is, I'm also hosting the FISU World University Championships coming up this July in Miami. And basically, they've pegged these games as like a junior Olympics for university sports. And so I'm very excited because Australia is coming out to participate, so that's going to be great. And that is, these FISU games have a lot of insight from the Olympic Committee, so they really look at what's going in on these games in helping determine what sport is or is not included in the Olympics. So for any countries that are getting behind this event, kudos, super kudos. Well deserved. And then those countries that aren't, and there are some that are in the top 5 in the world that aren't getting behind this, all I can really say is shame on them for not wanting to get netball into the Olympics. So in addition to these World University Games we're hosting this July, and we have a lot of volunteers and spectators coming out from Australia and New Zealand. And we also have Vicky Wilson that will be coming out and commentating. So we're pretty excited about that. And then next July, this is very exciting as well. There is what's called the World Out Games. Now, the World Out Games has been traditionally focused on working on equal rights, human rights, a lot of human rights initiatives, and it's been focused on the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender community, so the LGBT community. Now, these games, though, are bigger than the Olympic Games. We've got 17,000 athletes coming into South Beach, Miami at the end of May next year. And there's 35 sports, and what I did was I went and petitioned to the International Organising Committee in order to ball. And this was about 12 months ago, and we were successful, and they were very excited. So now we have netball added to this program of the World Out Games, which is just huge. It's every 4 years. And it's great because we've got not only women's netball, but we got mixed netball and men's netball added to the program. And that's open, it's an open invitation to any team from around the world. It doesn't have to be a national team. But, that's pretty exciting to have a big event like that and have netball showcased front and center. And because netball is a new sport added to the games, we're doing the organising committee is doing a lot of exciting promotion and events around the netball, like I think a boat cruise around the Miami River. We got a little afternoon tea, et cetera, et cetera. So they're really excited about this new event.
And just before we move on, do you have the website for the event or any social media handles?
Right now we're getting all that set up. The website is should be launched here in the next couple of weeks. But if they just go to netballamerica.com, we will have everything. All the flyers are up there already with the registration packets.
All right, and then just shifting on, is there anything you'd like to expand on about netball not being in the Olympics? Because you did touch upon it in that conversation you were just having with us in the studio.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I mean, I see it every day on Facebook or Twitter. Hey, sign this petition to get netball in the Olympics. Netball should be in the Olympics. Why is it not? I know Los Angeles is putting in a bid for the 2024 Olympics, and people have been tweeting the LA committee about getting netball in the Olympics. Listen, that's not the way to go, and that's not helping the cause at all. In fact, it was actually annoying the organizing committees by people doing that. What is going to help is obviously supporting these non-Commonwealth type events and getting netball raised to the status that it's not just a Commonwealth game sport. So these World University Games, these World Out Games, breaking out of the typical barrier of just having, a World Cup that's, played with all the Commonwealth countries and in the Commonwealth Games. So we need to step outside the box, do that. And I see it that men has got to play an important part of this. And I know in the United States we have men's, mixed, ladies netball, and all our tournaments offer it open for everyone. So we embrace them. And when we introduce it to the schools, because we have a lot of school districts, there's like over 2,000 school districts that we are working with. It's totally promoted as co-ed. And there's no way anyone in the United States thinks of netball as a female-only sport. If anything, it would only be the expats that live here that has been ingrained into them since they were little that it's a women's sport. But here it's totally co-ed. So same with the Olympics, right? It can open a lot more doors. So I truly believe you've got to have the men involved in order to make that happen, although that doesn't agree with what the International Federation thinks.
And another side issue too, Sonya, about why netball is in the Olympics. You were talking before about why it's important to engage big companies, but that come from countries not necessarily netball countries. Why is it so important to get those kind of organisations engaged in their push to include netball in the Olympic Games, for example?
Yeah, well, I think even just to take netball to the next level, right? So that's the biggest complaint. Why is there why is sponsors not getting behind women's sports? Why is there a lack of money coming in for netball, things like that? I mean, that's another thing. Again, you've got to look at these other avenues and these other countries and what they're doing. Look at the United States and the chances we have here with media exposure and going to the White House and all these other type events. You think how it could trickle to the rest of the world, right, for netball, or you get some big corporate Fortune 1000 company here, right, that's got sponsors. They've all got subsidiaries all over the world. So if they're going to start to spend, money on netball here, then it will all trickle, around the world. So again, it's just getting that exposure up to the level outside of the Commonwealth. I asked an IOC member today about netball. They would just say it's a Commonwealth game sport.
And just a little bit of a side question, but just to help enlighten our listeners, and I'm curious too. How have you been finding it in terms of attracting sponsorship in the current economic climate in the US? Sorry to throw you under the bus there. I should have probably given you some warning. The headlights are coming now.
That's right. I mean, it is, it's tough like anything. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. It's a challenge, but it is all about relationships and about what you can bring to the table, right? So, so it's about helping to develop some of that support yourself. So we've got a great network here. We've got I want to mention one sponsor in particular because they're fairly new to the netball world, didn't really know anything about netball, but they saw what we were doing and they loved it, and that's Diva Cup. Right, so you've got Diva Cup, who's an international company. They've had some spots in some TV shows around the world, but they're focused on healthy and eco-friendly products in regards to the feminine hygiene. So that's obviously important for our athletes and our members. So anyway, that's just an example of a non-netball type company that's getting involved with what they're doing because they're growing their business internationally. You know, women's sport and is a perfect fit, especially with the promotion of the, you know, healthy hygiene. So that's why it's such a great partnership for us.
And just also, Sonya, you provided a pretty good insight with regards to sponsorship and that kind of thing. You were talking about like the events away from the Olympics. Just how important is it for netball to do well enough in those events for the IOC to finally get the message that yes, it's a great sport and let's include it in our Olympics or in our events?
Yeah, so we're going to have Olympic representative at our event, right, looking at these World University Championships. So it was the perfect opportunity for the International Federation to step up, and this is their chance to not only put on a good show, but show and help support some of these non-Commonwealth countries in making sure they got teams to this event. I actually feel they've fell down in their duty and failed in that respect, and that's having a lot of impact globally to these, you know, new partners that have been trying to work with them in order to make this happen. So again, we're having to step up here as Netball America, do the role of what the International Federation should be doing to make sure that we've got, you know, a strong US presence there. And work with a lot of these other non-Commonwealth type countries to get them, you know, at this event.
So essentially, what you could say you're arguing for is there is neglect at growing the game at the grassroots level in a country like the USA. And I ask this because in some ways I think the New Zealand listener who has followed the sport of netball for the last 8 years over the ANZ Championship knows that the grassroots is strong, but the developmental pathways that Ben and I have talked about on this program have been a bit wonky. So do you think that would be a fair characterization?
Well, I think, you know, from my perspective, that's, you know, how I see it. If you ask them, they'll say, oh, we give money to our member. You know, there's obviously been we talked about it before, we're not the international body's member. They have a member in the United States. However, it's non-performing. However, they still take the money from the International Federation, and there's obviously no accountability or no growth with where that money has been spent. And, you know, that's a whole other thing. If I was an International Federation member, knowing my monies were going to some of these countries, I'd be asking for support as to how this, you know, validation of where and how this money was spent for development, because it's not going to development, right? So, you know what I mean? So we're doing what we are to develop and grow and run and at the high level. So we're bringing in, you know, for these World University Championships, bringing in IUA. So we're bringing in the international umpires. And while they're here, they're going to be running clinics for our members in the United States to bring them up to speed on the netball rules. We're going to have Vicky Wilson come in, and she's going to be running some coaching clinics for some of the players that are also volunteers at the events. We've got some international coaches coming in from South Africa who we're going to have one sit on the team bench for the USA team, you know, to help the USA girls, because we've got a very young squad. They're literally 16. Some of them have just been learning netball for 3 or 4 weeks. Some are former basketball players from college. So we've got a young team, but we're trying to give them the experience and get them on a pathway that we need to be, because the issue is for the past 30 years, if you look at any of the United States teams that have represented at any World Cup or any World Cup qualifier, they haven't been United States citizens, right? And that's where another issue comes into play, is that, you know, at the World Cup for INF, they allow non-citizens and to participate in the World Cup, whereas these World University Games follow Olympic rules, and so you've got to be a citizen of the country you live in.
And just changing tact a bit too, Sonya, just generally, what's news coming out of Netball America? Because I know aside from the university games, you also do a lot within schools. And last time we spoke to you, you were talking about just getting everything rolled out in schools. And I believe so far there's netball in 30 states of the states so far.
Yep, 33 states. So we've got 10,000 people across the United States. Now, one of the exciting things is we have our program in New York, and actually it got recognised by Billie Jean King and the Women's Sports Foundation. And so they had a huge gala with all these female athletes from all across the United States in Wall Street back in New York in November. So I was actually privileged to go along, and netball was highlighted. So there was a huge display for netball with photos and a whole story from the work we were doing with the youth in New York. And we received a grant, coming out of that event. We had a lot of donors that supported the program. So that was really exciting.
So, Sonya, is there anything else you'd like to add that we haven't covered in our excellent discussion so far?
Yeah, I think it's all about the global community coming together, right? And that's what I see the bigger picture for netball. And I know there's a lot of political reasons. Various national bodies have to protect their own, protect their income, protect their athletes. But that's not going to help the overall bigger picture for netball. And so it's really good. We get a lot of great support from around the world for these FISU World University Netball Championships. We got Vicky Wilson coming in. That's going to do some great coaching clinics while she's here, as well as commentate. We've got Claire McCabe, the IUA from Sydney, that's going to come out and head up oversee all our technical bench. And then it was so funny because I got an email the other day from these girls stating, hey, they want to come and volunteer, but we probably hadn't have heard of the place they were from. And they said, we're from a tiny place called Rockhampton. Oh, I just had the biggest laugh. So it was really good to, from my hometown where I grew up. It was really great to, to see their support. So, of course, I said, of course you can come and help. And, yes, I know where Rockhampton is. So that's really fantastic. And, I just think, this is just going to be good to help get netball elevated outside of the Commonwealth.
All right, Sonya, thanks very much for joining us today. Once again, you've given us a good insight into what needs to be done to make netball a global sport. Really appreciate it.
A PS, because it looks like Ben and I had a fault in the studio because we forgot to ask you about the US Netball Open. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, it's pretty exciting, actually. The US Open of Netball, because it's actually the largest official netball event on the calendar in the United States every year. And so we have our open invitation to international teams. And this year it's in Los Angeles, November 4th to 6th. So that's quite exciting for us. We've already had a couple of teams from Brisbane, actually. We're trying to organise them coming over now, team from New Zealand, team from England, and we have teams from all across the United States. So we have the mixed netball competition is really fun. As well as the ladies competition as well. We don't have men's on the agenda there yet. We will once we get enough teams participating, but typically we have the guys playing in the mixed competition. But now that it's in Los Angeles, so it's close to Australia, and flights are super cheap right now to get to Los Angeles, so that makes it pretty enticing for teams to come across the pond.
You've been listening to the 3 Feet Radio Show with Ben Carbonaro and Luke Herbert. Tune in next time for more special guests and netball commentary exclusively on YouTube.